Hey, Helen.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
What?
Um, well, as you can see, I kind of prepared minimally by putting up some background. I can't say if this is going to be the permanent title, but I figured,
Mm.
it's as good as any that I could think of for today's conversation. So thank you for joining me. And yeah, I just want to start by asking, how are you arriving? And maybe in intentional society fashion, what's alive for you right now?
Yeah. Hmm. So just taking a moment to kind of settle into the sensory experience because I've had a so it's yeah, it's Sunday morning where I am, and I've had a very fun but also like a very fun morning, but one that kind of uh requires quite a bit of energy, like mental energy. So I had signed up for the Intentional Society Presence Pods, and we had a meeting just this morning, like just before this call here, which was really enjoyable and fruitful for me, even though I was not the person in the spotlight. I was like, so like yeah, so one person was in the spotlight. They could talk about anything they wanted to talk about. The rest of us would hold space. We can be sounding boards. We can kind of like reflect and tease out things. And I was one of those people who were kind of on the sidelines, kind of just um absorbing, reflecting, and sometimes kind of like poking at something that was said, uh, which is yeah, like enjoyable, as I said, really fruitful for me to have been um able to uh see a little bit the inside of someone else's mind, or at least how that gets expressed, like someone thinking in
Mm.
real time, really, and then being able to contribute a little bit to the course of that thinking. It was a privilege, but also just really fun. But also this kind of tracking is quite it demands a lot of the attention, like mental attention, but also kind of like emotional or like kind of like whole person availability to do this well. So um, I can feel myself being a bit hyped up right now, like hyped in a good way, but it is like that kind of like, energy drink kind of hyped, kind of coming into this. Yeah.
That sounds pretty amazing, especially a few words that stood out for me. Use the word fruitful and the
Mm.
word fun and hyped and energy. And so that it really sounds like you had a pretty good time on that call.
Yeah, very much so. Uh, the it's I mean, I think there are different kinds of good times. There are some that are just kind of like entertaining, some that are more relaxing, kind of chill out. This is a different kind. This is a high energy,
Mhm.
high bandwidth kind of um experience, which I'm like the reason I'm pausing is that I'm trying to like see if there's an analogy I can make. Maybe something like reading a book on a subject that's quite new and challenging for me, but that I'm really fascinated about. Like it takes all of me, devoting all of myself to kind of like get at the meat of it. But it is so absorbing. It's like I can do it until I wear myself out. Um, so it had a little bit of that feeling. Yeah.
And well, um, I'm just as least sharing with you. I'm coming in I had a fairly kind of slow, quiet day so far. Just cooking brunch in the morning. So here in New York, it's like just after 6 p.m. And then
Mm.
going for a quick walk with my husband. Um, just, you know, connecting with something that I wanted to do over the weekend. So just like I discovered a YouTube channel yesterday, and I just wanted to get a bit more of a flavor. And so I watched a couple of very specific videos that I selected. And then I actually rested for about an hour and a half, and then I gave myself a haircut. So I don't know if it turned out well, but like at least it doesn't look horrible to me. So I'm pleased enough. But it was overall a slow day. But listening to you, yeah, there's a tingling for me there, and it relates to the topic, for me at least, aliveness. In that,
Mm.
because I thought about this during the day today, at least on a, even just knowing, hey, we would have this conversation. So one of the things that interests me about this topic, aliveness, is what creates this experience for me? What is it actually that makes me feel more alive? And one of the things that does that is to taste another person, to get a taste of their world, and to really kind of dive into that, just like maybe a really good book or a good movie might do. And then because there's some excitement about learning, how does life feel for someone else, and to really get a good taste of that. And that is one of the things that makes me feel somewhat alive, probably because, well, it's, just in my own life, when I feel strongly about something, then I feel alive, but also when I feel that coming from other people. And I'm curious
Yeah.
now. It, just continue, please.
Yeah, and I feel like my Zoom call this morning has kind of perfectly or prepped me, or it prepped me in a very specific way for the conversation that we're having right now. 'Cause I resonate a lot with what you're saying. And yeah, the presence pod call that we had this morning, the opening question was simply, "What's alive for you?" And that was the trigger or the trailhead that got us kind of talking about well, got the person in the spotlight talking about a range of things and their life, and then we were reflecting on it. And like for me, like the key word aliveness was like it remained in the forefront of my consciousness as I was thinking about on what level do I process what I'm receiving here? What things do I tug on? I chose to tug on things that sounded like it was alive for them, or that that makes me feel alive, and that was kind of where I was tugging. And it's like what came out of that seemed um well, it seems to have encouraged the the interaction to go into, yeah, to use the word again, fruitful territory. And I mean fruitful here perhaps in the sense of um it's enhanced the that thinking out loud process. It enhanced like our kind of collective um ability to think and feel through, like kind of intuit through quite complex and potentially quite charged material. Um, and to do so, I guess, with an optimistic outlook. I don't know if optimism is quite the right word here, or maybe like um a hope-filled outlook.
Mhm.
Uh yeah. I feel like I may have slightly dramatized it now with such big words as hope and so on. It was not like it wasn't someone kind of like, yeah, these are the biggest traumas of my life. It was uh, a lighthearted but also serious and in-depth conversation. And the reason that I'm kind of dwelling quite a bit on this is because it was like very much, it felt like the conversation that we just came out of was about, it wasn't about aliveness, it was where aliveness was happening in real
Yeah.
time. And it was generating, like we were talking about aliveness and that was generating aliveness. And I can feel it in myself coming into this conversation that it's oriented me in a certain way, like just ha like having been primed by that. Like, um, I think if we had just jumped onto this call and I had been doing something entirely different and you just went, Helen, what's it like for you? I might just start making a list of my hobbies or whatever is my are my current interests. Like, here are the kind of the five YouTubers that I currently enjoy listening to, or like here are the kind of the activities I'm doing for the next week, which is not a bad thing. I mean, that's quite a natural kind of springboard to get to know someone on a certain level. And the things I tell you about my hobbies and my activities, it will actually open up a lot about what is important to me. And from there we could have pulled out, so what is the aliveness factor in there? Uh, but it would have been this multi-step process, I think, to go from, for example, saying, I like meditating to feel what is the thing in there that makes it juicy. Uh, whereas now I feel like I'm kind of I'm on the level of wanting to squeeze the juice out. So I feel like I've meandered quite a bit, and I'm seeing how I can bring it back to something even vaguely resembling responding to you. Um, actually, sorry, one more tangent here. This just to be a bit metacognitive, this quite free kind of free association, rambly kind of monologue that I'm doing right now is uh uncommon for me. I usually see myself as an introvert and not as a massive talker, and I'm more likely to make fairly brief responses to questions. Like I'll try to answer the question, but I tend to be quite brief, and I go, okay, what do you think? Um, it's unusual for me to just be able to go on and on and on for quite a few minutes now. And I think this has something to do with, oh, I feel like I've come alive already. Uh, which is interesting for me to notice this. It's a little bit of a novel discovery for myself. Um, but yes, to actually round back to this kind of aliveness in meeting another person or meeting another person in a certain way, um, if it wasn't already abundantly clear from the what I was describing, yes, to me that is also, I wouldn't say it's the only way, but it is a primary way for me to um feel, yeah, the depth and the juice and the potential of of happiness, like
Mhm.
um to yeah um probably several aspects to that. Like there's the feeling quite privileged to be able to kind of see a part of another person's inner world. Um, there's the um, sympathetic joy or sympathetic kind of like um, emotionality or like resonance, to put it more broadly, that can occur between people. And that's I mean, that's, I guess that's the kind of thing that a good book or a good movie tries to engage, but you can engage it in real time with another person, like with
Yeah.
given the right
Yeah.
setup. Uh, and when I talk to someone who enjoys engaging on this level, I usually come out feeling like I now have more sophisticated lenses for viewing my own life and my own difficulties and my own aspirations. Like I feel like I've I've grown as a person, or I've been given resources to help me grow as a person just from that conversation. Um, and it leaves me feeling all hyped up like I do now, which is great. So that's yeah. So that's my very, very roundabout response to to your opening.
And again, like I feel this kind of resonance with you, especially around this kind of self-reflective, ooh, there's something going on for me that isn't quite as common that that feels interesting. So that's one aspect. Another piece that really still stands out is I think you used the word challenge or like like charge, where the person who was in the call in the center brought something that had a charge. But then earlier you also mentioned you know the experience of what's important for you, and then you might, for instance, talk about your relationship with meditation practice. And so one of the things that I'm already wondering, even just like looking at those three things, whether there might be different flavors of aliveness, almost like there's like ice cream, and you have vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry, and many other flavors. And so there's maybe different flavors of aliveness. One is around something like charge, whereas I think in meditation, for instance, it's maybe not so much about getting into the state or resonating with charge, but something else. But it can still feel very alive. So I'm wondering if you have any kind of thoughts yourself about that.
Are we back?
I've got you back, yes.
Nice. So I've just switched to my other connection. Hopefully that's a bit more stable. Yes. Um, but
And
oh,
there was a moment when I started to suspect maybe you're frozen, but I wasn't sure. I don't know exactly where you lost me or I lost you.
so I heard as much as you were mentioning three things. Uh, there's something about charge and my relationship to my meditation practice, and then you cut out shortly after that for me.
Yeah, so I'm curious if you have this experience with aliveness, that there's different flavors to it or different aspects of it. And if there's a kind of aspect that is just like feels worthy of exploration right now.
Mm.
And it could be in relation to your life or still to the previous call or even just like the experience of it.
Yeah. Um, I guess what's alive for me, what's meta alive for me, are these different flavors of aliveness. Um, I haven't introspected enough to quite tease out for myself um, how they are different or if they are indeed different. But on the um, at first glance, it does seem to me that they come with quite different flavors. Um, yeah, I, I'm just wondering if it would be useful to attempt a basic taxonomy now, like kind of thinking out loud.
Well,
Uh,
so to give you just another
mm,
example, which could
mm,
fall into this kind of area of charge,
mm,
but it seems also not exactly related. Which is one of the things that I thought about today, moments where I felt really most alive in my life. And one of them was when I caused a car accident many, many, many years ago when I was still in Germany. And I really kind of like it was not a positive feeling of like, oh, this is so great to be alive. But I was just like, ah, I'm alive. Like I don't want to die. So it was definitely there, this kind of like very heightened, ooh,
yeah.
uh, and so even that is maybe a flavor of aliveness. It's just like a very different flavor than like sitting in a movie theater and having this very kind of pleasurable like sensation of like, ooh, I'm vibing with the characters or something.
Yes. Yes, very much so. much more recently, like just a few weeks ago, I went bungee jumping for the first time.
Ooh.
And that was like, yeah, like 2 seconds of, I'm dying. I don't want to die. And that, yeah, the moments before and during and after was, yeah, that there's a very kind of keen, like as in sensorily keen quality to that kind of aliveness, a kind of biological kind of like, you know, hormonally charged kind of I'm a biological being. There's a kind of animalistic kind of flavor to that, right? Um, yeah, which is I it's not that yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because that wouldn't have that sort of aliveness would not have been what came to mind first for me when I think about flavors of aliveness. And yet, another metacognitive aside, I do wonder if it's something that I would do well to develop more of a taste for that form of aliveness. And then I'm almost um, the impression I'm starting to form is that these different flavors of aliveness are more like ingredients that can come together in different combinations to produce different kinds of you might call peak experiences or just worthwhile experiences, the stuff that makes life good. And um I I mean, I imagine if I were to measure myself on these different levels, there are some ingredients that I have more ready access to than others. So I would say that the ingredient that's most accessible to me is the kind of total absorption in one special interest, like a very kind of neurodivergent flavor kind of absorption, whether it is a really good movie or a really interesting concept or just a project that I'm obsessed about, and I could like the rest of the world falls away for however many hours, days, weeks, months, I am engaged in this thing. And it's me and that thing, and even the me falls away, and it's just this thing. Uh, and it has such a sense of mm, movement and flow, and it just kind of it carries me along like current of a river carries me along. Um, so that's I'm very familiar with. The resonance with another individual is something that is it's newer to me. Um, like yeah, this like hyper focus interest thing I've had as long as I can remember back to early childhood. So it's very well developed, we might say. Resonance, I guess it took some degree of psychological and relational maturity for me to learn to appreciate this flavor and to be able to play well enough in this playground that I'm getting that kind of resonance. Um, and that has a sense of yeah immediacy and intimacy and kind of yeah that I don't know if co-creation is quite the right word for this, but that sense of like dyadic communion, uh uh which I'm increasingly learning to appreciate in its different flavors. And then the going back to the car crash slash bungee jump kind of I am alive thing. Maybe has been a very kind of heady person my whole life. Um, it's like not athletic, not really kind of outdoorsy. Really, I don't really put myself in the kind of situation where that kind of mammalian aliveness surges up, and so it's um. But I wonder if yeah, adding more of that flavor, whether it's doing bungee jumps, just for more kind of physical, I am an animal kind of things would kind of would add to that. Um, I guess the closest I have to that is more of an intellectualized form or a more complex form where, say, there is an emergency or a deadline that needs to be met home in my home life and work wherever, and then that can trigger a sort of like adrenaline surge, kind of like animal instinct kind of well, sometimes it can trigger that form of aliveness. Other times it just triggers anxiety, and it's a bit of a wash which one comes out. Um, but yes, that I suppose I ended up doing a bit of a taxonomy. And, and yeah, I'm happy
And
to keep talking on taxonomy, um, and how to mix and match these, or I can dive into any specific thing I mentioned, whatever kind of, yeah, whatever seems interesting to you.
one of the things that, and I just wanted to share this because it really came up for me as a connection that I hadn't quite made like this before. So I went to Asia for 3.5 weeks with my husband in March,
Mm,
and I visited China for the first time. And what stood out to me was a kind of, either in my imagination or projection or real, I can't say, but in my interpretation of the people, some sort of like a difference in how I imagine the inner quality of experience when it comes to what is it that people not so much run away from, but like feel some anxiety about. What is the anxiety of life about? Where as I was really there and had also conversations with my husband and with other people and with other people since we came back, it occurred to me that um, in the context in which I grew up, like I grew up in Germany and then moved to America like 18 years ago, that here in the Western culture, the primary anxiety seems almost now to be, what if someone else gets to the honey pot or to the berry bush or to the resources before I do? And I
mm,
need to run faster because there's someone else who wants that. And so there's a lot of attention figuring out who in my environment is the fastest runner, and let's make sure that that person doesn't get to all the good stuff first. So a lot of the attention goes to other people, to individuals. Whereas,
mm,
like, my experience in China was just like, no, everyone just wants to get to where they want to get to first. But other people are not so much in the experience that seems to be going on. The way that I observe traffic patterns, or the way that I also, just like observing people, and if they don't, or if they do or don't pay attention to other people in their surroundings. And it really seemed to me that there's more of like a, yes, there's other people, but they're more in the background. And
mm,
I'm more concerned with wiggling through the background to where I need to go, but I'm not paying attention to the individuals as much. Whereas here in Western culture, it seems to be that there's a lot of attention on the individual. And so I'm almost wondering if your experience, where you said you're only now later getting a bit more used to this experience of resonance with other people, maybe being a flavor of aliveness. That, and I was just curious if I don't know where you grew up, and like whether this is like a cultural thing or like, I don't know, but it
mm,
certainly just occurred to me. And one of the things that you said that I really liked is this idea of ingredients, and that it is possible to learn. It's almost like, oh, I've never cooked with saffron, or I've never cooked with cumin. Hmm, what is that like? And then I'm adding it to a dish, and maybe the first time I'm doing it, I'm totally overdosing, and it's just like, it's way too much cumin, and it could be way too much. But I could still experiment with it, and maybe at some point I'll actually really enjoy cooking with that ingredient. And so that is something that even I am now wondering. Yeah, there's probably still quite some flavors of aliveness that I'm still fairly unfamiliar with. Like, for instance, I imagine
mm,
having kids might be its own flavor of aliveness to see,
mm,
because it is really such a fairly unique experience. And I'm gay, I don't have kids, and so that's maybe a flavor that I'm relatively unfamiliar with. I mean, I've at some point taken care of other people's kids for hours at a time, but not they're they're not my kids. So it is, I think, still quite a different flavor.
Yeah, there are a few things I could potentially kind of touch on. So perhaps in reverse chronological, this thing's this. I mean, like, uh, I'm a single person, no kids. I never had any to have kids. Um, and um, I guess I've spent like it's just ne something that's never come up for me. And I suppose, when I was at um like earlier in life when I was less attuned to or less interested in attuning to other people's interiority, I suppose like develop you kind of like point a child sees the whole like sees the world through their eyes and assumes everyone sees the world more or less and from their like that similar perspective. But to recognize, oh, there's actually a lot of diversity in people's experience and everything. At that early age, I assume in particular kids, it was just a society expectation that how else is humanity going to survive these or after you when you're old, um, or maybe just as the natural consequence of of biological processes. You have sex, kids are going to show up at some point. So I always thought it was kids were something with afterthoughts, all right, that that just happened to just roll on generation after generation. And it was literally like a week ago that I read someone write that they have had this lifelong urge. I'm struggling to recall the wording um was so pointed. It's not just urge, it's this relentless biological urge to have children of their own. And um and that um flipped flipped over this, yeah, I mean it overturned this lifelong assumption I had that kids were an afterthought for everyone. Um and now I'm kind of wondering, I mean, well, the realization that for some people there's such a strong urge for reproduction and for like, well, I don't know what it is, but is it reproduction? Is it birth? Is it having babies? Is it raising them? Is it seeing them grow up? Like, I don't know what specifically it is that is for them, but that puts a lot of things into perspective. For instance, um, people who either can't have kids because they're in same-sex marriage or because they're like for health reasons, for whatever reasons, but who want kids, why don't you just go adopt? There are always babies up for adoption somewhere in the world. It felt like to me, like, like me putting two and two together, it seems like the obvious solution to the obvious problem, right? But now I'm going, wait, maybe the urge is specifically your kids, or maybe even the biological processes of having a child. And just realizing there's so much more, yeah, like this is a thing with so much complexity that I had just overlooked my whole life. And the reason I kind of go into all of this thing about having children is um, I wonder how many forms of aliveness exist in the world that I've never even come across. Like it's never occurred to me to come across them, such as having kids. If it wasn't for this one person, like one random on the internet saying this thing, I wouldn't have realized that this is something that makes people come alive. Um, and it also leads me to wonder, so is it just that I'm built sufficiently differently that this was never going to be a point of aliveness for me? Or is it something that I'm missing that I don't need to be missing? Like, is it a matter of, um, yeah. So, as opposed to kind of, um, draw out a lot from specificities of having children, whatever. It's like, yeah, something like this dance between knowing what things you already have that's bring you to life and continuing to nurture those and um, encourage those to take up more and more space in life, and also kind of outreach and discovering what stuff is going on for other people. What can I discover from that? Do I like, can I grow my um, surface area for aliveness through this kind of discovery? Um, Not that I'm necessarily saying go and have a kid just to check out what it's like. um, but yeah, it's I guess that's like, yeah, a live thing for is kind of like like playing with that dance of growing in what I already love doing, and then discovering what else is out there that I could add to my cabinet, to my kitchen cabinet of ingredients.
Yeah. Yeah, as you were describing that, I was also just reminded that um, in my first long-term relationship, I think there was definitely, I would say, a mutual desire at some point maybe to have kids. Um, and then I had this thought, desire, wish still going into my relationship with my now husband. But really, over the years, it has become clear he is just, for really reasons right, there's no right or wrong or good or bad about it. It's just like he is just not into it. And so I remember that there was a time when I felt somewhat sad, like really kind of, ooh, at some point I would so much like to taste chocolate, chocolate ice cream, and I won't get to taste chocolate ice cream in my life. And yeah, there was a sadness. And now I'm more like, well, I mean, there's so many things in my life that I will never get to taste, and still it's going to be a good life, right? I will never be an astronaut, or or whatever it could be that I will just also never do. And of course, maybe one of the reasons that there seems to be, and you used this concept before, right? Societal expectation. I think there's a general societal expectation that having children is somewhat of like normal, right? That people just have children. And so it might be a bit more or less outlandish wanting to have kids than wanting to be an astronaut.
Yeah, I think there's something to that societal expectations, and then maybe like kind of tying a little bit back into your observations when you're in China of like the extent to which other people's activities influence your own desires, or at least your own actions, your own like kind of like anxiety, social comparison, or whatever driven actions. Um, that's it seems it feels more okay, more comfortable to drop a desire that is sort of rare or difficult to obtain, like being an astronaut, being a world famous writer, entertainer, whatever. And it's outlandish, like, can I be reborn as a different person, a completely different kind of like society and like, I mean, just by virtue of having been born in this body, in this gender, in this country, to these parents, already forecloses so many other life experiences you could have had if you were born and raised in a different situation, right? So like these are things that you can only have one childhood, you can only have one, right, whatever. Um, so what I'm trying to get here is um maybe there's like this um, greater sensitivity to um, goods that could be obtained, to use quite a crass word, uh, when it feels like they are reasonably open to you, or it feels like it's something that's open to a lot of people, and therefore by extension it should be open to you. Um, Such as kind of having a certain amount of wealth, um, having a certain kind of career success, um, uh, being moderately successful in your chosen hobby or something. Um, and then there are many, many other goods that maybe we relatively easily foreclose ourselves to. Um, which I mean, I'm just kind of associating here again. Um, it's something that I mean, I think what's coming out for me, like through the course of this conversation, is that my my big project now is um not really going into some particular thing that makes me alive, but figuring out what my aliveness is and what does that even mean. Um, and um, I think one part of that project is to re-examine the the criteria or surface and examine the criteria by which I certain desires are more worth keeping, others I'm more comfortable with dropping or foreclosing. How did I come to decide which desires are worth pursuing, and which ones I should feel more or less comfortable about dropping? And yeah, it's I guess this ties back into the human to human resonance thing that I mentioned, and also to the matter of like how much do you look to what other people are doing and deciding what you want to do. But I think in a positive way, in that I sometimes don't, or often, I don't realize what potential there is for me or in me until I see it, until I see someone else doing that sort of thing. And then I go, oh, I didn't realize that was possible. Um, yeah, I'm now recalling, this is coming with some emotion for me. I'm recalling there was a time in my life when I was like my one of my kind of big was searching for belonging, a group, a community, a cause, something that I feel I belong. And I like feeling that I didn't have that, and therefore I felt a kind of, even though I was um surrounded by people, by sociality. Um, and I had at that point in my life, I had kind of dipped in and out of a number of communities and found that there were friendly people there and I could sort of vibe, but there was never any place that felt like home. And I was feeling quite sad about that, like feeling a bit like an outcast. Um, uh, and during that life, I ended up having a conversation with someone, and what I discovered in that conversation, but also by seeing their example, like how they live their life, was to create your own community. Like, um, that's my existing paradigm of there are these existing communities in the world, and I have to figure out which type I go into, like which what you like you sort into. That was an unnecessarily limiting paradigm. You create your social circle, which could be a formal community or several, or it could just be your circle. And because it's yours, you are at the center of it. You get to decide like which people, which activities, which aspects of which people you connect with, what depth and ways. This is your belonging. Like you create your own belonging. Um, and when I discovered that, well, it seemed to me that this person was building their life and thinking about their sense of belonging from this sort of lens. And when I realized that this was a valid way of looking at the problem of belonging, it um it felt like a life-changing moment. And it was a life-changing moment when I discovered that. And a lot of the things that I've been doing since, including joining Intentional Society, which is how I got into this morning's call, including kind of just saying, "Hey, Jochen, yeah, we can have a chat right now on this whatever thing," has come out of this new paradigm I learned through this one conversation with this person. Um, yeah, like it's yeah, feeling quite a complexity of emotion there now. Quite a lot of tenderness in saying all this. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and the first thing that I really just want to say is there's a wonderful warmth, and it's more than just resonance, but there's the feeling of home right now for me present.
Mm.
In part, yeah, I feel because you described the process by which you were able to take steps closer to the experience of home, to feeling at home with in your life, with your life, with the people that are in your life. And yeah, there's a genuine like sweetness is not the best word, but there is a richness. There's a healthy flavor there, the flavor of home in aliveness, where yeah, I imagine that if you have that flavor as like one of your reliable flavors available, it's probably much easier to explore, to go out and explore other flavors because there's this very secure and safe awareness. If it rains outside, I can just come home and enjoy that flavor.
Yeah. I think I really like uh this connection that you're suggesting between aliveness and search and kind of like desire and expression, like this kind of outward, what feels to me like an outward motion, and then the anchoring, the stability of home, of I suppose other words for it could be authenticity, like standing in your own truth, knowing yourself, um, uh, feel comfortable in yourself. Because there's a I'm just thinking like what kind of description works fleshing out this connection that I'm sensing here. Part of it is this like the method used of if it's raining outside, I can come home. This is definitely a part of it. This uh, the search for connection, the search for newness, for intensity, whatever it is that feels like coming alive in the outside world. It can take on a quality of desperation if this anchoring is lost or weak, a quality of like mm, I maybe like at an extreme end, it's something like I am nothing. I don't exist unless meanness can be generated somewhere in the environment by what I do and what I participate in and how I'm seen. And I mean, I've kind of played with flavors of that at points in my life, and that is it's an exhausting way to live. Um, there's also something like another metaphor that I want to play with a bit is the sense of, yeah, mirror resonance or like discovery, this or like a kind of mutual discovery, um, that through um, exploring activities and relationships and ways of being that bring me to life, that helps inform my understanding of myself. Like, what kind of person is Helen? Um, Also, having the sense of what kind of person am I, um, helps me to evaluate, to sense what things I should be doing out there, and how, like, yeah, I'm kind of hand waving a bit here, because this is more sense than thoughts, but this, I guess it comes to this idea of like authenticity, which I use this a lot, and I don't even know how I'm defining it for myself, let alone can I define it like, for anyone else or in any one setting. But it seems to speak to something um real, this kind of authenticity that emerges or is created in this conversation between like the interiority and this and external activity. Um, and I suppose like going back that period in my life when I was searching for belonging everywhere, thinking that there is something could be found if I just found the right people, the right cause, or the right whatever, is when this dyadic conversation had collapsed, and I was trying to locate it in one place next to me, and that turned out to be unwholesome in ways. Um, and Yeah, I guess that kind of teases at one of my edges that I'm exploring now, like how to have this conversation
Mm.
between me and world, I suppose.
Yeah. One aspect that got me curious, and I'm even not sure if it's one or multiple aspects, but like what caught my attention is that there is a flavor of aliveness, and you use the word desperation when I have a longing and it is not being fulfilled. And that is, I think, also a flavor of life.
Hmm.
And it is probably one of the ingredients I've definitely tasted it at times. In fact, I it's so fascinating. Like when the situations that I had where this flavor was present, my first reaction was, I don't like this flavor. It's not a it's I don't want to have this experience. But with one particular situation, there came a time where I also felt, well, it is what it is. And by allowing myself to actually taste it, it really seems to have changed. And I'm wondering whether it is a similar kind of change to the change you described based on the conversation you had with this person, where you had this aha moment of, ooh, I don't have to find a specific home outside of or connections outside. I can create this with people by myself. Where similarly for me, around this flavor of desperation, it was to learn that yes, when I'm longing for something and I'm not getting it, and I have this initial experience of desperation or experience of like, I want this so bad. Why can't I have this? That it doesn't mean at all that there's anything wrong with me, and that there's no need to actually make this about anything on the outside. The fact that I'm not getting what I'm longing for, if it's something from the outside, it right that there's no need to make it about the outside. But really, I can go back to my, oh, I am just having this longing, and I focus on that, and then all of a sudden, it really has changed what I can do about it. And that sounds to me somewhat similar to what you described, where, right, so where the initial longing was about, okay, I wanted to belong to a group of people. And it really kind of, that strategy is not working. I tried it there and there and there and there, and it's not working. But then by focusing on the longing and then be like, yeah, but like I can actually do something else about the longing. I don't have to find an existing community, but I can do something else. But it requires almost to go back to what is this feeling actually about. And I very much, this was something that you also said, where I very much have had this experience that my senses tell me on some level who I want to be, not necessarily who I am, but who I want to be. And if I trust those experiences, then I can develop myself into the person who I want to be.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm just taking a moment to appreciate the the conversation that's kind of um like developing like here, because I also feel like this is a moment of home. Like if I think of home as a quality and experiential quality that surfaces in certain situations, in certain environments, in certain moments. Um, and I'm just taking a moment here to see if I can feel into what that quality is. I think that's um, going back into our key word of aliveness, I'm seeing that in a quite a visual, like um concrete sense of like lighting up. Because at many points when you were talking, there are tiny aha moments, like in the sense of you've said something that lights up some part, some way. Um, and some of it is the feeling of some aspect of me being seen, difficult to articulate aspect of me that another person has articulated. Um, uh, some sense of this particular pattern of lighting up that I'm sensing may not have occurred if I was in a different situation, talking to another person in a different mood, or if I was just introspecting, like solo introspecting. Mm, a sense of comfort that accompanies the lighting up. I guess this maybe goes back again to there's a safety, there's an anchor here, even as I reach out. A comfort of mm, sensing that it's possible to talk about things that can be hard to articulate or things that I'm still processing that I haven't captured into presentable, marketable language. Um, that I can actually kind of, I guess, communicate from a more raw in the sense of like kind of less processed layer of myself, um, which um, I really enjoy being able to do. It's like uh, yeah, I guess it feels like it comes to an interplay between comfort and novelty, but a kind of novelty that also kind of links back home in some way. Um, I feel like I had some substantive comment to make about something that you said as well, but it's like, uh, um, but yeah, I was just really enjoying the vibe.
Yeah. As you were talking, like an image came up for me, and I've mentioned this to one or two other people in the past in different conversations, but it came up again, and it's the image of like a butterfly wing that unfolds, and where in the unfolded state, it is actually the relaxed state, because there is a relaxation going on. I think like this for me when I feel at home, where everything that needs to be crumpled up or covered or layer and layer and layer and layer of protection, like clothing or an armor. Once I'm home, all of that can just fall away. And like, oh, there's a stretching out. And then indeed, this thing where, especially when that happens, right, with the right person, the other person can see something on my surface, on my unfolded surface that I have never seen. I may have a vague sense, oh yeah, there's probably something there. And then the other person says, oh, look at that. There's like a little marking like on your wing over there. That's so fascinating. And then I go, oh yeah, oh wow, this is so cool. And so yeah, like this thing of like relaxation, comfort, and then also, oh, there's something new here. I'm discovering a quality about my own being that I wasn't aware of yet.
Um, I love it. And actually, as you were talking about noticing that spot on your wing, I like what came to mind was like this is the inverse, or like some like really wholesome version of pointing out the mote in your brother's eye. It's like, yeah, Yep, it's you're pointing out something that is wonderful, something that is life-giving instead, and that is it's such a joy to both parties. I also remember what the substantive comment I was going to make to what you previously said about like something like something like the sense of longing, which can feel like such a difficult thing to bear, and um coming to um coming to being able to rest in and with that, um which um I don't know yet how much that connects to the um, the project of searching for aliveness. I suspect a great deal. Maybe in the end it will turn out to be identical even as one possibility. I look forward to seeing how my thinking develops in this space. The it takes a kind of courage, not kind of like chest kind of pounding courage, but the the courage it takes to relax, um, uh, to be comfortable with what feels like it should be uncomfortable. Which I mean, longing is one of those really difficult things. Um, uh, Something of its opposite, like disgust, maybe, or yeah, rejection or whatever. I mean, that another kind of flavor of quite difficult feeling. And like um discovering the extent to which I can be comfortable in the midst of these difficult feelings has already come a long way in terms of me feeling at home with myself and also with whatever environments I happen to be in. And I also love that connection you made with trying to recall how I can't recall how it was phrased, but it felt to me like um yeah, like feeling into this longing is what then allows you to discover ways in which it can be fulfilled, which like ways that may not have been available to you previously when you were so caught up on how do I extinguish this terrible sense of longing. Um, yeah, there's I mean, I feel like the one of the things that's emerging is interplay or dance between things. And here that what seems to be there is a dance between um acceptance, like and intimacy with a difficult feeling, while also keeping the search alive for what is fulfilling. And and that's I guess that yeah, like yeah, I don't know how else I can kind of characterize it more clearly at this point, but there is something of an interplay there.
Yeah, and the word that you used a few times, comfort with this sensation. I can tell that I'm still very, very much struggling in a number of not just like very specific, but like categories almost of situations, classes of situations where I struggle with being able to tap into the knowledge that if I can relax, if I can just accept that I would love for this to be different from what it is right now. And I can just accept that I have this longing, but it is not different. And if I can relax into that, then something else becomes available. Whereas as long as I get stuck with, and I want it to be different, well, I'm obviously stuck with, I want it to be different, right? I'm stuck there rather than just with the, it's okay that it really, yes, I have this longing, but it is okay that it's not going to happen. Because once I let go of my plan, then I'm open again to, so what else then? If not the plan that I had in mind, then what? And then I become open. And I very, very much assume that that is one essential quality of life, not just aliveness, but of life itself, is to not get stuck in a strategy that no longer works. But then to say, okay, let me do one step back and or maybe another step back. Oh, there's another path there. Oh, that's so interesting. But how unpleasant it feels to have to step back because it requires to give up some sort of like beloved idea of like what I think that's going to give me what I think I'm going to get. And I want it really much. So off I go. And so I go really forcefully in that direction. And then I run against the wall once, twice, three times. My head is already hurting. At what point am I willing to just say, it's maybe not such a great idea? And as I'm talking this out, it seems so obvious that that's the right thing to do. But how easy it is to get stuck in like a strategy, even though it feels desperately painful.
Mm. The uh the I suppose another metaphor that was kind of envisioning itself was relaxation um being something, yeah, like relaxation, but on the level of the scope of your awareness. I'm not sure I like that language, but what I'm trying to say is um this kind of like intense longing for this one specific outcome, and I'm gonna kind of bash against the wall and this thing. That is, I mean, tunnel vision. That is when your the 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 scope of possibilities in your mind has narrowed down to like this tiny thing. It's scrunched up in that attentional sense, and being able to let go of that the preferred outcome or this whatever is the thing that you're holding on to is like relaxing and allowing the rest of the space of possibilities to um come into your field of awareness again. Um, it's yeah, it's a kind of courageous comfort, if I want to kind of like go back to those words, that the letting go of the thing feels scary. It's like, no, I'm gonna like this dream of mine is gonna die or something. Um, but the ability to unfurl your wings to cover all of this scary space in which your dream is dead um, is um, well, I mean, it it's the scary place, but also where most beautiful and unexpected happenstances can emerge. Um, yeah, like feel like I'm kind of floated into something pseudo poetic now.
No, and I guess like what came up for me listening to you, like really play with play with this image or play with this process description is one of my favorite fictional stories that I read as a teenager, where the main character ha- has this obsession almost. Yeah, no, not almost. Has an obsession of how to achieve something that he wants to achieve, but that completely goes down the drain. And the way that he gets out of the pickle is by ultimately completely letting go of what for a while he was so convinced was the right path to get to for getting what he wanted. And the description really of the interiority of the inner experience of that character and how reluctant and painful and really laborious this process is for this character, because it sounds like such an easy thing. Oh, why don't you just let it go? But there's such an investment into this narrowing of the focus, right? So once I have identified, okay, I have this longing, whatever the longing is about, right? I want to climb Mount Everest. I don't know, whatever. I want to be an astronaut. But the longing itself is already kind of a very concrete, practical thing. And if I don't understand that it has already narrowed the focus, because it is already telling me, oh, I have a plan. This is what I want to do. It's a plan. And then I'm doing this and doing this and doing this, and it's not working. What is it? Okay. At what point can I step back and say, the fact that I'm having this experience maybe is a sign that whatever I think my longing is too narrow, and I need to unfold and actually get a better sense of like, what is this longing about? And then to say, okay, let me try another way. And so for me, the conversation that you had with this person that helped you see that this longing was not about being a member of a community, but it was something about finding connection. And that is something you can really do without joining an existing community. I think it is this kind of, and in the conversation with this person, I think he helped you do this process. And it's really kind of remarkable that now that I think about it, this is pretty much what has helped me grow in my work, in my marriage, in like pretty much every situation. And it's a little bit maybe like a plant seedling trying to crack through asphalt on the street or something, right? So there's probably some ways in which if the plant tries to grow, it just won't grow that way. Well, then you have to kind of take a little turn and grow that way. And then you have to take a little turn again and grow a different way. And so you just have to not get stuck with one direction because it is too narrow of a focus. And the difficulty that I then have is that there is an exquisite feeling of aliveness that comes out of following my direction, is to have a direction and being able to follow it. That also feels alive. It feels very alive. Like I have a longing. Oh, I want to be part of a community. And if I then join a community and I'm doing all I can to really join it, it feels very alive. And so it seems to me that one of the most important signals of aliveness that I really want to befriend is more the signal of it doesn't taste good. It more tastes bitter, or it tastes dry, like, or it tastes grainy like sand or something. It doesn't taste good. It tastes like something in my mouth that I don't want to be there. But to take that sensation and just be like, okay, that's the signal. That's the signal that the strategy I'm having, or that the focus, the narrow longing that I'm having, I may want to step back from that.
Yeah, I think this, mm, I've been using metaphors that suggest I am here, over there is the thing that will make me happy or make me, give me good feels one way or another. And what is the strategy? It's like there is a, like metaphorically, there is this timeline that is being drawn. There's a kind of abstractification. And what seems to be perhaps more helpful is to collapse the abstraction, at least in moments when we are, um, I guess, searching or attuning to um, to what it is that we desire, and look at it like in the right now, like right here. What am I doing and how is it feeling right now? If it feels like head banging against wall, if it feels like ah, rah, rah, grabby, grabby, it's like set aside your idea of what you might get in the future when that thing lands. What's happening right here is not desirable. Um, like I'm not fulfilling my desires right now by being grabby, clingy, and trying for this thing that I imagine exists that will make me happy. Um, there's a kind of blindness, like semi-willful blindness that can be involved. Um, when I never know in the moment because by definition I'm blind, but like in retrospect, look at um places in my life where I have been banging head against wall trying to get a thing. Um, there's a strange, perverse blindness where I get so hooked on the good that I imagine this thing will bring to me. And then a blindness to how much suffering I'm causing myself in the process of getting this imagined good. Um, and there's some element of this relaxation, this unfurling that involves opening my eyes to the totality of that experience, not just the thing I want, but how much suffering I'm generating for myself in the process of going for that thing, and then realizing, Helen, what on earth are you doing to yourself? Yeah. You can make a choice right now to increase happiness by doing something other than this. Not talking about something in the future, talking about this right here. And I guess, um, there's a learning to trust via literally stepwise experiments that if I attune to what feels good, to what seems to be satisfying desires right now with whatever thing I'm working on right now, that tends to be a much more wholesome and resilient way of building out or feeling my way into futures that are also desirable.
And so, like, it seems to me that there's at least a few. Well, meta is maybe the step up. I don't know exactly how I would call the step down, but where I can focus my attention rather than on this narrow thing that I'm pursuing. I'm really focusing my attention on the entire situation that I'm in. And by seeing, oh, this is what's happening, right? Almost stepping out of my story and like looking at my life as though it is a book. Why is this stupid character you keep doing the same thing? Like seriously, like dude, I mean you've done this 3 times already. Like it hasn't worked. I mean, can we move on? Chapter 4 better be something else, something else. Right? Where I just step out of it. And then the other thing is really, so what is the thing in the moment that creates a sense of flow almost, right? So you talked about one flavor of aliveness. It's just like the thing that you can dive into, and where it then has this quality of knowing what you're doing. And is there something in the situation where almost like you go onto a different, like lower level of quality? But one other thought that I had is, um, yes, I do think sometimes when people bang their heads on the wall, it is probably a lot of suffering for them. But on occasion, at least, it also seems that after the 1500s, 5000s, 50,000s time, they come up with something brilliant, right? So when I don't know if it was Thomas Edison, but like the development of the light bulb, the incandescent light bulb, how many filament materials were tried, and then at some point, oh, this is it. So I'm also considering the possibility, at least, that one approach can simply be to also be relaxed around the experience of running against the wall itself, where I can also be okay with that experience. Where, okay, but one more time, please. Where I almost accept that I have this inexplicable longing that is about something specific. And I will just keep trying, and it still is painful that it's not happening. But I have this kind of meta acceptance around the fact that I am doing it, and that for whatever reason, I'm not going to give up. Because I can at least see that. So last year, when I had recorded conversations, the topic for me was friendship. And yeah, there are probably some people in my life who, for whatever reason, are not as close. I don't feel as close a friendship with right now as I would want to. Where I have tried a couple things and they haven't worked out. And it was almost like something that you also said earlier in this conversation, right? To learn when a desire is something that you want to keep up, and when is a desire that you want to drop. And it is, I don't know that there is the generic answer, oh, here's how to decide. But if I make the decision to keep up the desire, then at least not to be suffering with despair, but just like with, yeah, I have this kind of crazy desire and I'm a little cuckoo here. It's my little spot on the wing. And I'm just gonna keep at it, even though it may not work. And I think there's also something to be said about that quality of life, because I do think life also has a stubborn quality. I mean, I do think life has a quality of like, what's it? Feng shui? No, whatever. Like, the way of water. You just like go wherever you can. And that's the way to go. But then there is also the quality even of water itself, to just grind down the hardest of materials over time. And so I think both qualities are at really deep core qualities of life. And so for me to just be like, I can be either. Like, like if, and almost let my inner compass tell me that's a situation where I want to hammer at the wall. And here's a situation where this is painful. And now that I think about it, I have taken the steps back. Yeah, I could do something else.
I love you bringing that uh the harmony yin yang, maybe that's what you were thinking of like yeah, like the hardness and softness, or determination and attunement, maybe like maybe ways of describing these two back into it, because that is, I mean, what I've been describing now as dance or intimacy, um often has this quality, like, I guess, mm, naive advice or platitude often kind of like lands on one end or the other. And there is, to some extent, that can be useful, like when someone is clearly overpowering one way or the other. Um, that's when just telling them, okay, try looking at another way, uh, or when the approach they're taking, like the attitude they're taking, has become stuck in some way. Because I guess maybe stuckness is an apt word here, because you can be stuck in a form of stubbornness, like literally banging your head. Like imagine if Thomas Edison used the same
Yeah,
filament 1,000 times and
yeah,
working, or if each time something didn't work, like his bare meat grew and grew, and by the 100th time he was wanting to jump off a cliff, right? I mean, that's a kind of stuckness and stubbornness, as opposed to stubbornly wanting to do his thing and then being, um, well, willing to experiment. I mean, experimentation was his thing, like that was the thing that he was stubborn about. Like flexibility was the thing that he was stubborn about, to put it in a certain way. Um, So it's like, yeah, there can be a stuckness or unstuckness in determination. There can also be a stuckness or unstuckness in fluidity. Like, I mean, a kind of over fluidity of kind of losing your sense of that anchor of what is it that you want, of allowing your desire to become dispersed, and or um to become so attuned to the environment and to what's available to you, that you kind of merge into it and no longer have any sense of what you're here for and what you're trying to do. That is also a kind of stuckness. And I think that is what um like um well, yeah, I was gonna say what it can lead to, but I think it can lead to all kinds of quite unsatisfactory outcomes over time. Um, I wonder, yeah, I wonder if it would be fair to say that a fluidity, a meta fluidity that can encapsulate both hardness and fluidity is is um is the thing that I'm to take out for myself.
where it seems to me that the different flavors of aliveness give us at least access to however, whatever animates me, whatever the source of this sensation of being animated is, it seems to respond to different things with these flavors. It has this kind of reaction to, ooh, this is kind of salty, or this is like sweet, or this is like whatever. And if I pay close enough attention to those kind of flavors, I would at least say that gives me some guidance in this meta fluidity. It, like, do I calibrate towards a bit more fluidity, or do I calibrate to a bit more stubborn and directed and like stickiness, stuckiness, whatever. And then it truly is a dance. It's a little bit like a martial arts dance, like Aikido, where like no one gets hurt, but all of the energy can flow perfectly.
Hmm.
And one flavor of aliveness that I really enjoy, not just like in my own experience when I do certain things. Let's say I remember the time when my mom taught me when I was in my 20s how to sew using a sewing machine. And like we had like two or three sessions, and by the third session, I think I was really kind of I was getting a hang of it, and there's a flavor to that, right? This kind of feeling of,
Mm.
"Ooh, I got it. I've learned how to move my way around something. I can be put in a situation and I know what to do. And it feels there's an empowerment feeling to that. And similarly, when I notice this with someone else in my environment, when they describe that process that they're going through, and by the end of it, there's a mastery of some kind of skill that allows them to be more adapted in their environment. And I would assume that this kind of calibration to the flavors of aliveness, that is a skill in itself, which is applicable to all kinds of contexts, right? Because knowing when I need to put the sewing machine away and say, okay, enough trying for today. I need a night's rest. I'll come back to it tomorrow. Or maybe I need a different material, or maybe I need a different needle, or maybe I need a different machine, or maybe I'm not meant to sew at all. Maybe I need to do something else, right? But to at least understand those flavors and to then respond to them in this meta fluidity dance, that I think is a skill that is probably applicable to all kinds of things that I want to do in life.
Mm. There's a there's a thought that just come up and then it kind of popped up again. Um, Now trying to see if I can nudge it back up. Yeah, it's to do with yeah, like bringing like aliveness and like kind of fluidity about, and yes, like the skill, like there is a skill involved, a learnable skill involved um in identifying, distinguishing aliveness. And maybe this contributes. Yeah, I feel like this sheds light on one of the things that I had described way back in the conversation of mm, this dance between really going in and into this thing that already makes you alive, and then this kind of like playful experimentation to discover whatever else is there. Um, and that, like, I guess this is another facet of it, and it's something like um when you feel like you've been brought to life, that's quite wonderful, right? And it's and natural and normal and probably very healthy to kind of to immerse yourself in situations where you do feel like you're coming alive. But there can be a kind of stuckness to that, even where at an extreme end, it could become something addictive,
Mhm.
like I don't know, extreme sports, to use the kind of like that animalistic aliveness. Um, it could become like in a certain way, it could become a um yeah, like a kind of blind addiction to a thing that creates good feels. Or my example of hyper focusing on a special interest, that can also be its own form of addiction, like kind of a form of like work addiction sort of thing. Um, and it's maybe the way I would characterize what unwholesome about that is that over time it tends to narrow your it narrows the your life. You become overly like your life gets overly shaped to feed on this one thing, um, which then, yeah, it becomes a bit of a lopsided life and also a bit of a fragile life because what if this thing goes away for one reason or another? Um, whereas seeing aliveness not as a consumer good that you obtain as much of as possible, but as mm, a quality that you can develop more and more sensitivity to, um, allows you, well, gives you that fluidity to search for aliveness in different places, different settings, to search for ways that you come alive that you didn't realize before were possible. It gives you so much more resilience in the face of difficulties in one area or another of your life. It's like, um, I suppose it's the teach a man to fish, um, rather than kind of like feeding on this bucket of fish that you found. Um, it's like it's like learning an approach to living a fulfilling life. Right?
Yeah, there's like in what you said before, still like this word that is ringing in my
Mhm.
consciousness. Speaking of resonance, is the word experiment.
Mm.
Like, to what extent am I conceiving of my my little life form, this bag of blood, bones, and
Yeah.
skin, as an experiment, and that there's uncertainty in the experiment. There's definite uncertainty. But if I get stuck in one form of like aliveness seeking, even if it feels very successful, I at least also imagine that the word that then comes up for me that is missing in that description is the word wholesome. And it is because it doesn't actually blend well with everything else that's going on. Because
Mm.
I'm not alone on this planet, right? And it's certainly it would seem weird for me to so that this planet is here just for my amusement and for my aliveness. But it is really for this aspect life, all life to kind of like grow and develop. And so there's some usefulness for me in widening my awareness far enough to include the aliveness of other other beings. And my hunch is when I do that, I'm far less likely to get stuck in this one aliveness that ultimately is not wholesome because the people around me will at some point probably notice, like this Jochen guy, he's always like running around, doing whatever to feel good. And it works for him, but he also seems to be checked out in many other ways, in many other domains where he could be really kind of be part of life. He could be part of this whole tapestry of stuff going on, but he chooses to focus all of his energy in this one thing. And that seems a little sad or weird. And then they can come to me and like, and if I have some awareness for that, then I think I'm probably more willing to be the experiment that I assume I am.
I really like that you're bringing like bringing the presence of others into this um this introspective conversation about what feels alive within one. Um, because yeah, that seems to be one of the, I mean, there's hmm, I'm kind of pausing for a moment because this can be a thought issue. Like the once we start looking at um like the me and others or me and society, this kind of connection. I mean, there's so much complexity in there, and there's so many ways in which it could be not serving one side or the other, or both sides. And one way in which it can be not serving would be if it's, yeah, like you're describing, you become kind of closed in on this one thing and you're, yeah, like checked out on what else is happening. Um, and it becomes a bit of like this kind of mm, like hermetically sealed container that you're kind of working within. Um, which is, yeah, like it's well, firstly, it doesn't contribute to the aliveness, to the well-being of the community that you're necessarily embedded within, but it's also uh it could be dangerous even for the person who's in that bubble, because like when you're in that bubble, kind of somewhat cut off from the hopefully balancing influence of others, there can be all sorts of like weirdness, and like there's so many rabbit holes that you can fall into that can, um, yeah, that can potentially be quite, yeah, quite sticky and quite harmful. But then there's also on the other side, and this is where I was like about to say something and I paused for a moment. Um, And this, like, kind of reflecting, so, like, um, some of the stuff that I'm working through is going back to the concept of societal expectation. As soon as we bring others into the picture, there is so much, like, um, there is so much in terms of mm, society kind of influencing me or molding me into thinking I am a certain kind of person. um, like expectations for me to be successful in a certain way or to feel that I ought to succeed in a certain way. Or another version would be an expectation I place on myself that the things I do need to be of service to the community. Um, and this, like, I think in this aspect in particular is where remembering your own aliveness becomes so critical, because like if you want to be of service to the world, I mean, there are a billion ways to serve the world. No one person is going to do all of that or even a tiny fraction of that. And um, well, there is so much need in the world. There is there's a kind of, whether you look at it from the perspective of like, the way I just described, that there is overwhelming need in the world, much more than any one person can resolve. Or if you look at it in terms of, mm, I don't know, obligation or like virtue, like the sense that I need to show up in a certain way in order to be a useful member of society, in order to deserve my place in society. I mean, there are many ways in which this can get warped.
Yeah.
And I'm like again, like kind of attuning to. So out of all the things I can do that are possible for me to do that would be of service to someone, which are the things that actually help me, that make me come alive? And that is it's proving to be such an amazing compass for discovering how to be a person in the world.
What comes to mind is two things. When it comes to aliveness, I can sense into my aliveness with regards to what is it that I sense would be good for the community, right? But then when I'm not sure if this is like mainly an expectation or if it is good for me and the community, whereas if it's just an expectation, then who knows? but I can really sense into that, not just with my aliveness, but I think also with the aliveness of the other people, which is to say, so you have the expectation that I do that. Tell me more. Is the other person actually really alive about that? Or is it just like, does it feel like this weird, desperate thing? And then what came to mind, and I literally only came across this in this past week, like what a weird coincidence. And I don't know exactly because I haven't read the entire Tao Te Ching, but in like chapter, if it's called chapter 38, there's this, and I read like three or four English translations, something like, when the Tao is lost, goodness remains. And when goodness is lost, charity remains. And when charity is lost, justice remains. And when justice is lost, then everything that remains is just like a husk of some sort of like, everyone is still doing the habit of like doing the good thing, but no one does anymore. No one knows anymore why they're even doing it.
Mm.
And then all of the aliveness that was initially there in the decision making, why to do anything in the first place, is lost.
Mm.
Because, like, from the initial aliveness of why we do things, why, for instance, if a neighbor is in need, we go over and help the neighbor. Why we do that? It's not just because it's a societal expectation, but because it feels more alive to the neighbor and to me. But if that gets lost because at some point it just becomes this expectation, and that's the reason why people do it, yeah, it's really crappy. It's really crappy, and it can lead to really also some, yeah, very unwholesome outcomes. Yeah. And so then what do I have at my disposal to experiment, to test into, to probe into? Is are we doing this because we're alive, we're more alive, you and I both, not just me or you, but like, is this really kind of good for life? Or is it because there's a societal expectation and we don't even know why we do this anymore? And then I want to just like stop with that crap.
I love that. I mean, we were kind of, I mean, the conversation was kind of flowing in the direction of the Tao Te Ching. So I'm like not surprised that at some point it actually surfaces. And now I've bookmarked somewhere in the back of my head that I want to read it. Um, it's, but yeah, I like again, like kind of, I mean, I brought like one's own aliveness as a kind of litmus test for whether or not to do something. And then you brought in, well, the aliveness of the other as well. And I have this image of something that could either be a living ecosystem or a set of clunky machinery. And that's a kind of like a spectrum that you can move in between, depending on how attuned each person involved is to their aliveness and to also like the kind of the feel, like the buzz of aliveness that's happening, that's forming around the shared project or vision or
Yep.
whatever it is that they're doing. Um, and there's hmm, there's like this kind of hits like kind of at um yeah, one of my many kind of rough edges, like the I guess my developmental edges, and distinguishing between yeah, forms like flavors of aliveness in the other person. Because I feel like there's yeah, I don't know if this actually I'm very much in thinking out loud territory here. I mean, I have been through all the way through, but even more so right now. Um, like we were talking for much of this conversation about becoming sensitive to different flavors of aliveness, different flavors of stuckness, of fluidity, of whatever, um, and how much that is a skill that needs to be developed. And then there's something that's I don't know if it's identical, but there's some complement of that in relation to um uh yeah, connecting with another person and their dreams and their wants and the asks that they may make of you. Um like I can um like I guess like your example of someone who asks you of something because they feel like it's an obligation on them, or they feel like they have the right or the duty to place an obligation on you. That's one flavor where you can attune to there's something in there that's kind of crappy. Um, but another way in which it can get off kilter is when someone is actually really bubbling and alive and surging with energy to do this thing. They have this amazing vision and they're gonna go all into it, and then they want you to go all into it, and there's this hype that's being built up. Rah, rah, rah. Um, at least on the surface, there's a ton of aliveness. There's nothing but energy there. But there is more discernment that needs to be made. And
Yeah.
do we want to go all in on this? Like, what is behind this project of yours? Um, it so um, yeah.
I'm laughing because I just wanted to quickly throw this in.
Yes.
This sounds like the timeshare sales conversation I once sat through. The guy was animated like hell and was making pitch after pitch after pitch as to like why it was the right thing to do and whatever. And he was definitely very animated and alive. Or that's how he came across. But it was a flavor of aliveness that felt too close to this desperation of like I'm hammering against the wall. And I'm not sure if I want to be part of the hammer that you like. Let me be your hammer. It's just like, yeah, no, I want to.
It's funny because I as I was describing in abstract form this kind of project that's that's full of energy. I had a specific incident in my life in mind as well. Not incident, but like a specific person who had a specific grand vision in mind as well, and recruiting everyone they could to fulfill this grand vision. It was something quite different. It was a hobby thing that they wanted to grow into a much bigger than hobby thing. Um, and this person had I mean, I think they were genuinely passionate about it. There was a kind of like this kind of like fun, kind of like kid-like kind of like excitement that they had, which I thought was really wholesome and really nice. But there's also like, hmm, yeah, there's also like I'm like there's more discernment that could be happening here that is maybe not happening. And part of it could be, are they actually hammering on something a bit too hard? Like, are they so passionate about this thing because there are other areas in life that are kind of that they're trying to compensate for with this thing? Or like this passion that they have, how sustainable is it? Like is it just a pie in the sky vision, or or is there something that we can actually that we can actualize? So yes, I was laughing with you, with your timeshare guy and my enthusiastic project, like hobby project guy. Um but there's also yet another flavor that's I think needs to come into play when we're talking about attuning to someone else's aliveness. And it's something like discernment between aliveness and charisma. Um because it's also like, and I mean charisma here and with something of a negative connotation of someone who's not just exuding energy, but there's something about it that is a mask, or that there's something that's kind of instrumental about it. Um, uh, and I'm trying to be careful and not kind of overstate it, because on one extreme you've got full on, like um psychopaths, charismatic cult leaders who are doing wielding this power in the most destructive way possible. But then there's like it's a whole spectrum, and then like on the mild end of the spectrum are people who are actually pretty genuine, and they do have like they do kind of more or less kind of have a vision that they're bought into, and someone who's closer to the end of my kind of like hobby project guy. Um, but there's something that is. Mm, there are like ulterior motives. Even that's overstating a bit, but there are like unexamined motives maybe that are embedded in there. And I'm like, wait, before I buy into this thing, I want to know what I'm buying into. Um, like, is it there's like what kind of fish hooks does it come with that I don't know, and maybe even this person doesn't know until sometime after we've gotten into it. So there's yeah, a kind of care that I feel like needs to be taken with kind of allowing someone else's aliveness to infect you.
I would not have used the word charisma, but now that you put it on the table, I find it, at least for me, for a moment, useful to taste taste that word. Like, what does it mean? What is the flavor of aliveness, right? If I meet someone who is very charismatic and they can talk to me about, I don't know, building a new sports stadium in New York City, and just the way that they're talking about it feels enthralling. I feel pulled in. And what is that? Like, what is the source of that aliveness? Because as much as it is something that is a quality in that person, it speaks to something in me. And what is that in me that it speaks to? Because I think when you use the word discernment vis-a-vis charisma, then I think it helps me to at least understand, ooh, if those taste buds are stimulated by another person, it could be, for instance, because I'm still looking for connection or looking for home or looking for something. And this person has this uncanny ability to splash some juice in my mouth and be like, strawberry, strawberry, yoo-hoo. And it's just like, ooh, I love strawberry. Give me more strawberry. And it's just like, and to understand, yeah, I always love strawberry. But if people who I've never met, especially people who I've never met and don't have a long standing relationship with, if they already have figured out where exactly to squirt the strawberry juice, is that really kind of like the person that I should trust with anything major? Because, like, how does this person know this about me? We just started talking. Like, what is this, right? Where almost the response that wants to come up in me to this charisma might not be warranted because, you know, maybe exposing these kind of taste buds to people, and I think it is hard because our world is such an instrumental utilitarian world. And so the longing that people have for connection and home is just like always, even if it is under some kind of surface, everyone has these longings, right? I don't know if you know of this book called, I think, Bowling Alone, where someone described, I think in the 1980s already, how American culture became ever more lonely. And I remember last year, 2024, the Guardian had an article series about the loneliness epidemic. So I think everyone has this experience of wanting to feel connected. And if you then meet someone who knows how to exactly hit the right taste buds, yes, you can fall into this charisma trap.
Yeah, I think like you're pointing out this uncanny ability. It's almost like a like close to cold read ability. Like how do I feel like I've bared my soul to you 5 minutes into our conversation kind of feeling. I think that is yeah, that is one of the kind of mm, rather pointy things that can alert me to yeah to there being something else at play. And I'm trying to like feel out the distinction between this and kind of like mutual like resonance. And I think it seems like hmm, what you seem to have implied, and maybe I want to build this out a bit, is that charisma, or at least one version of charisma, the more scary version of charisma, is not so much an uncanny ability to read a person that they've just met, but more a deep and intuitive understanding of the kinds of things that are core needs or core fears for people in general. So not that person standing on a stage trying to sell the stadium to 5,000 people is individually connecting with 5,000 people, but they are using the kind of language, speaking in such a tone, like in a way that they've known, perhaps through experience, perhaps through vibe, connects with sufficient people. Um, there's like this, what I was describing earlier of, oh, there are certain things that you said that make little bits of me light up that don't normally light up. These people kind of shine a floodlight on you. um, and it's like, oh, I feel such a sense of connection to this person. I've only met them 10 minutes ago. Uh, and there's, and here, like, I'm thinking one of the mm, ways that I can make myself more resilient to, like, mm, I guess, what seems like more instrumental uses of resonance, of connection, um, is to be very aware in myself of what are these things that rarely get lit up, but that I really enjoy having lit up. And another way to put that is um, going back to this um, mm, unfurling in the presence of longings, of unmet needs, of these difficult things. If these things are hidden from me, if I'm hiding them from myself, then this rare person who shows up who can light them up feels really special. Like oh, finally, this the person who can light up parts of me that I've not I've been afraid to touch into before. But if I'm already quite comfortable in them, I'm like, cool, you've pointed out these spots on my wings. Yeah, I know they're there. Also, I've got 20 friends who can see them too. Uh, it's, it's like it's just kind of like that's this is sort of it's
It feels a little like stage magic. Oh yeah, yeah. I've seen that card trick before. Yeah, yeah, it's a nice one.
very much so. Yes, yes. Whereas the first time you see us, you're literally a magician.
Yeah, no, seriously, it is the difference between seeing a magic trick and thinking magic is real. And the the word that you used, special or specialness, I know from a different like context with other people where one person keeps using this to imply or to point to that people that humans just have, at least when they're not yet fully matured, this burning longing to feel specialness, to feel this kind of excitement over undiscovered territory becoming available.
Mm.
And once the maturity is there, yeah, well, it's just like I know I have this weird scar here and there. I have this and this and this. I know all of that, and so it is no longer that all that special. If someone is like, oh, you got this and this and this, and this. Yeah, I know.
I, I think specialness kind of points to something else that um I'm learning to attune to with yeah, someone who is like charismatic in a potentially dangerous way. Um, and that's like, yeah, it's not just about pointing to your longing and suggesting that this is like I have the solution to your longing. I mean, that is certainly part of it. But another aspect of it is there is like these incredibly charismatic people feel and they look special to us because they're rare and they put themselves on stage. They tend to. And I suspect they feel pretty special about themselves as well. Like it takes some kind of that quality to I think to act in that way. And there's further to that, there's a the resonance that gets created is the you and me were special, or you and us in this in group, we together are special. Those of us who share this vision that I'm laying out, but I have the specialness, and if you join in this vision, then you too could be special by association. And yeah, like I mean, there is, but one of the kind of more common, or maybe even universal longings is to be special, to be different, to be unique, to be seen, to be on stage in some way, in a way that gets positive attention. And it's yeah, like this when this particular spot gets lit up, when this particular heartstring gets rung, it's a lot of discernment can go out the window. Uh, like it's this like this the pull of this this need this I guess yeah that gravitational pull of such a strong need, right, can override override reason, override discernment. But I also want to go back to the word charisma, which I realized I had brought up, and I feeling a little bit sad for the word that it gets so often maligned that like I mean like in many ways it has something of a negative connotation um because looking at the word like the etymological uh sense of the word, it just means gift. We're saying a person is gifted. And before I suppose, or like I mean charisma now has this fairly narrow meaning of you are gifted in a certain way in which you present yourself, in a certain way in which you communicate. But the word gift just means gift, and it can be gift in all sorts of ways. And now I'm kind of waxing slightly biblical here and thinking about what charism and charisma meant in the Bible of each person has their special gift granted to them by God, and that this gift is what um is what fulfills them in their life as well as serves their community. And I there's a part of me that wants to redeem this word charisma and
Yeah.
see it as like
And
maybe
so
it's yeah.
I'm wondering if there's a real difference to be made between charisma as like the real thing and charismatic as almost like the veneer of it. Where,
Mm,
right? So where, and I'm not saying that that is how people use it, but like maybe it is useful to find a distinction. Because I totally agree that if someone has a gift, and I have now met people who really like I connected to to those people through their gifts, through their God-given ability, where I feel and those people are not charismatic. Some of these people, if you try to have a conversation with them, might even be they might stutter or like run away
yeah.
from you or whatever. But they have a gift, and like I don't know, they can make the most beautiful baskets, or like they play the most beautiful tennis, or whatever it is, and their aliveness is visible through their gift. Whatever it is that they manifest in the world, you actually see that is their aliveness. That is their self expression that needs to be seen. And if you see it and if you connect with a person through that gift, that for me seems wholesome. Whereas if someone has this version of charismatic that is this kind of, oh, he's a charismatic politician. He knows how to sell stuff. He can tell you a good story and you buy into it, and then hook, line, and sinker, you're gone. That it is a gift, but it is a very, very narrow gift. And like, I'm not even saying it is always abused, but it is definitely open to abuse. I think much more than is the gift of like being able to make the most beautiful hand broidery or like, crochet something, and people just come to you like, God, you did this thing. And it's like amazing, right? So like, like I don't see immediately like the recipe for abuse there.
Mhm. Yeah, like the idea of a gift being that a gift and that it can be used or misused or abused. I like that as a lens on um redeeming the word charisma, as well as like yeah, veneer of like charismatic as a veneer. There's yeah, maybe it's to something to do with a societal overweighting of um, self-expression or certain ways of self-expression. I mean, the way that our society is structured, um, so much of our conventional success comes from being able to communicate in a certain way, in quite specific ways for quite specific circumstances. It almost encourages people to develop that kind of narrow charism, that's like self-marketing kind of charism. Um, and it's I wonder if it's yeah, like hmm, the metaphor that I'm getting here is like high quality goods versus crappy
Hmm. Yeah,
counterfeits.
yeah,
And for the
yeah,
rest of us, or like for all of us, the our job in part is to learn to distinguish between the high quality goods and the crappy counterfeits so that
yeah,
we stop giving our damn money to the counterfeits and then we're
yeah.
actually buying the goods.
And what you just said, I would almost say that that is, I imagine very close to the disease of the world right now, which is that we're having such a hard time to differentiate between stories that are wholesome and stories that are just like crap. That on first glance they look good, they look appetizing, they look even like righteous, and they look like, they appear to have all of the flavors, the taste buds, all like the mix is all great. But in the end, they're being told by someone who just figured out by through reverse engineering how to mix up a story. But we are story driven creatures, right? We are no longer just animals. We are story based animals. That is our, as a species, it is our marketing trick, right? We are
Mm.
at the top of the food chain because we can tell stories and coordinate and organize millions of people into the same activity. And I think we're getting to the point in our species of evolution where we figure out how much abuse can be done with that if the wrong people figure out how to reverse engineer our taste buds. And we're struggling with that. We're so struggling with the discernment of like which stories are actually worth our attention, and letting it siphon off our aliveness into that story.
Mm.
And it's so hard, right? Because how do I know if I read someone a Substack piece about like, oh, I went to this convention, it was really great, and I learned this and this and this. And at some point, I read a paragraph. By the way, subscribe to my Substack and help me grow my platform. It's like, dude, do I now have to have my red alarm bells go off because all of a sudden it feels like a sales pitch?
Mm.
And it's hard. It's really hard because you got me up until the point where you said anything about like help me grow. It's like, okay, 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 okay. Right? It's this hobby guy. Maybe it's a great idea. Maybe it's a stupid idea. And I need to know really personally, what is it in your experience that makes that story a story worth living? And I need to hear it from you in a way where I trust that it's not just like a rehearsed, charismatic pitch, but where it is truly related to your gift, that you have the gift of discerning the path for how to organize an environmental boycott in Peru. And if I really get the sense that you're talking from your heart and not just like because you know how to smugly and very smartly talk about it, then maybe I will be convinced. But I need to know more than just like words. I need to feel you. I need to feel into your soul for that. And I think we haven't figured that out yet. We have not figured out how to do that discernment with people so reliably that we don't fall for crap stories anymore.
Yeah. Like, I mean, like the diagnosis, if I can call it that, of stories being the the reason we as a species have risen to power, but also the thing that can be our undoing. That's yeah, that rings pretty true to me. And it also um it really brings out this and quite harsh aspect, this overweighting of communication, because stories are communicated most commonly with words. I'm thinking about how, I mean, even right now between us in this conversation, it takes a certain fluency with words for both of us for what's being created here to be able to surface. If I had the same kind of insights and felt senses as did, but I was constrained in my ability to express myself, this conversation would not be happening. Same goes for you. Um, and it's it kind of like could bring it way back to like here, this being here. Um, it really brings some kind of urgency, some kind of like necessity to a lot of the inner work that I'm doing, which is learning to think other than with words, other than with what seems to be reason. Because I mean, I know that I overweight it greatly. Like I find myself often judging someone's intelligence or like judging the quality of their work or even judging their authenticity by how well they communicate. Like I can fall into that bias so much. Um, and then I can trick myself as well. Like sometimes I'll be writing a diary entry, like no one's gonna read it except myself. But I find myself like using quite flowery language and like let me just like make this sound a bit more poetic. And after a while, I'm like, wait a minute. Am I trying to convince myself that I have a very profound idea here? I am. The the dangers of a person who worked with words their whole life, right? Is that like the charisma, this particular charism gets turned against yourself. And I think this is something that um like I mean, yes, there are people who are predatory in some kind of really fundamental way, but are there many more people who aren't predatory? There are people who are genuine in many respects, and their enthusiasm is genuine, but they have sufficient charism that they can kind of, to some extent, talk themselves into believing something more strongly, more fervently, maybe a bit like more narrowly than they would have otherwise. People who can um, like hype themselves up, even as they're hyping others up. And I think this kind of, like well-intentioned but potentially disastrous vision um of like is like actually contributes to a great deal of societal dis-ease, um, including among people who are trying really hard to improve society. Like this kind of going back to this, like people who are desperate to be doing something good, and they've convinced themselves that this is the thing to be doing, and they've convinced themselves that like they feel some form of aliveness in themselves. They've talked themselves into it, and it's like, oh my goodness, like the layers of kind of self-deception, self-manipulation that have gone into it. It's like, how do you even begin to see through that in yourself, let alone in other people? But that's one of my projects now, like just working out in myself
Mhm.
first.
Which, yeah, it brings me back to can I be with my own dis-ease, broadly speaking? Because I think ultimately the stories that seem most false flag or psyop, like wanting to pull me in against my better judgment, I think they work because they hook me somewhere where I have a dis-ease, where I have this feeling of something is wrong, and here's a story that promises a cure. And how tempting it is to jump on one of those stories. Because, oh, finally I don't have to feel so bad anymore. If I give all of my energy to this one, I'm doing the right thing. Yippee! Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like borrowed aliveness, right?
Yeah,
Kind of like almost like riding on someone else's.
it is this kind of promise that's a little bit like a credit card. Here, swipe this right now.
Mm,
And yeah, I do think this will come back with interest, unfortunately.
mm,
And to learn, and again, I think it's a skill to pay enough attention to the kinds of taste buds that are being hit by stories. And why does it all of a sudden feel so excited? Why do I feel so much excitement? What's going on here?
mm,
And to then take a moment and be like, is this genuine aliveness, or is this just like me trying to pigeonhole into a narrow strategy where I'm somewhere trying to fit something into a hole that I feel somewhere.
mm. Another strand that I wanted to pull out is like, yeah, in discerning like hidden motives in someone else's pitch. Like you mentioned monetary gain being one of those possible ulterior motives. Like, are you really trying to sell me this convention, or are you trying to sell me? Yeah, I like yeah to like how much of this Substack post was written for the purpose of getting my wallet, which is like I guess one of the possible ulterior motives, and I think um one that we should like we are rightly wary of in such a commercialized society. Um, like there are some other like there are other ulterior motives that can be harder to detect and potentially as dangerous or even more dangerous, like um, ulterior motives of stealing stealing your attention, your adoration, even of your attachments, um, which which is the kind that you might see in someone who really genuinely deeply believes in an ideological cause. They're not out for your money. They don't care about your money. They want your energy to be poured into this thing, or maybe they want your energy and attention to be poured onto them as a person, like a person who has such a deep and unmet need for attention will get it by like and will wants to get it by whatever means they can. Um, there's like or like yeah, like I think almost any common human need can um get inverted into something dangerous, even something monstrous, like wanting to suck away your money. That's like kind of human need for security and prosperity and growth that gets kind of inverted into something horrible. But then, yeah, the need for attention or the need for belonging, like someone who builds a following around themselves so that they have something to belong to. Um, so many, so many things that can get subverted like that.
And I'm also thinking of the need for a cause, right? The
Yeah.
purpose, where yeah, you can. And this is again, it's like the Thomas Edison question, right? So because if I'm recruited as an activist into a collective of activists, how much have I been hoodwinked? I don't want to use the word duped, but at least like some sand has been added to my eyes, and I'm a half asleep at the wheel as I'm going into this activist uh, 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 community, and we're like, we are stopping the oil industry or whatever it is, and because we have this burning feeling of a righteous cause, yeah, you can be talked into pretty much anything at some point. And so I agree, right? There's way more dangerous ways into falling for a story than just money. Because if someone can, I want to do something for the planet. I have a burning feeling, sure. Here's a story that allows you to do that. Go for it with all your passion. Glue yourself to the tracks and derail a train or whatever it is, right? So like it's I think it's very difficult for people, right, these days to figure out at what point is this no longer wholesome? Is this really not no longer really serving life?
Mm, yeah. This and there's also the flip side of that of because I've
There, there,
yeah
there is
like
because sometimes something needs to be done, and it
mm,
requires the collection
yeah
of activists, right? So like that, but to the discernment about the
yes
wholesomeness
yeah
of the movement. Is the movement as a whole doing things that are good for life?
mm,
That I really, with all of my life force, want to support in the way that they're happening. And then I think the difficulty, and I have this so in so many situations, again, also at work with my husband, that initially it feels like I'm doing something that I'm all in. And then at some point something happens and a red flag comes up. It's like, wait a minute, wait a minute. And then it then feels almost disloyal, or it feels too late to back out. Because yeah, I said I would stand with this thing. And then comes up this weird thing where like, is wait, are we doing this for the right reasons? Are we still the Tao, or are we no, only now the husk of like by wherever we're doing it? Like what is it that we're actually doing it? And at that moment, it can be a bit late to then raise your hand and be like, excuse me, I all of a sudden feel a little weird about this.
yeah like this need for continued discernment even like after
Yeah,
having signed up for something or started something um like I think for me like I the way that I sense it is say I join a group or a cause or I sign up to a project and at first it is driven by enthusiasm. I like this feels alive to me. And these people seem like people that I want to hang out with and people I want to work with and people that I want to vibe with. And it starts off with what seems to be a pretty innocent and wholesome desire. And then at some point, if I kind of like, yeah, I think in the moment, the feeling that I get is a kind of sucked inness. It feels like at some point I I can't help but continue, or I feel obliged to continue, or I start to fear what would happen if I discontinue. Like, so what started off as like innocent, enthusiastic energy starts to take on a very specific course, an almost irresistible course, like it is carrying me along or something. Um, and if I, so that's how it feels in the moment. Now, like in retrospect, looking at a time when I have started off something that was wholesome and then it kind of slipped into something else, what was happening was this initial energy, there was energy in there was charge in there because it was lighting up some parts of me that wanted to be lit up. But then at some point, those things became so dominant that they overtook the thing I was initially enthusiastic about. So I might have started this because I really want to get into this project. And then at some point, for example, my need for belonging starts to take center stage. And it becomes more important to me that I belong to this group of people who happen to be doing this project that I'm part of. Or maybe my identity as a useful person comes into play. I am a person who contributes to this project. And then that starts to overtake my initial enthusiasm. And at some point, it became about satisfying these needs while I'm still lying to myself and pretending to myself that it's about the project and my enthusiasm for it. And that is the disconnect that's what's happening, which in the moment just feels like a kind of like, oh, why am I being sucked into it? Um, and I say that I deliberately make this distinction between how it feels in the moment and how it looks in retrospect, because it's all very well and good for us to talk in retrospect about, yeah, like those other people who get duped, or like, oh yeah, bad old me who get duped. Now I'm better off. But hey, there are always more refined layers of subtle deception that we can fall into, and like the real valuable skill is not to dissect what happened in the past that's already been, but to learn to notice it happening in the moment. And then that sucked inness, um, like that for me, that's like one of the, or maybe even the main clue that something's gone a bit wrong.
Yeah. No, I like the way that you put it. If I asked myself the hypothetical question, how would I feel and why would I feel that way if I were to step back from this? Is it just disappointment with my own longing about the thing that I'm doing, or is it because I would feel shame coming from the other people because I no longer am part of them? Or like what would be going on if I did step back? Because then I can get a sense for the flavors that I would expect under that condition. And if that expectation has more to do with expectations and with something not so wholesome, then that's at least I think a pretty good warning sign that yeah, maybe there's some sucked inness is going on.
Yeah,
And
that
so
that
like I like it very much that once I get into a stream, especially a stream with other people, and I go into the stream because of a certain flavor of aliveness that I really think is wholesome, that I like. But then at some point, very subtly and very surreptitiously, sneakily, the flavor actually changes. Can I still sample the flavor, and how do I do that to really make sure that I'm still in it for the right reasons?
mm, I love that, like stepping back and sampling the flavor. That's like I love that as a in the moment strategy to check for what's happening. And it's, I mean, what leads me or leads a person to get sucked in and to stay sucked in is the inability to face that longing, right? It's like, oh no, I can't look at that. Too scary, too
Yeah,
painful, too oh, but
absolutely. Absolutely. That's, yeah.
that willingness to look, even though it's painful, that's what allows you to notice when something has gone awry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
I noticed we have
Yeah.
been at this for like two
Two and a half
over
hours?
over 2.5 hours. Um,
Uh,
I don't know if this is like
hmm.
where the sucking ends, and we came we came out the other end, and now we can both relax and feel like, oh, this was great.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, like I've got the clock in front of me, so I have noticed how long it's gone for, but it's like it doesn't feel like a two and a
It
half
does,
hour long
it
conversation.
does
I'm
not.
like I'm
It does
I'm, I'm
not.
just vibing. It's just kind of, um I'm like yeah, but it's yeah. I have been really, really enjoying this conversation. Like I mean, hey, talk about aliveness. Felt very alive for the last 2.5 hours, or what, 2 hours, 40 minutes, however long it's been. Yeah. So
And
it's
I can promise, Helen, the last year the conversations that I've had. So what I will be doing, I will download the recording. I'll send it to you to with the transcript. Uh, Look it over. If there's anything you in the end feel like too far out or anything, I'll take it out. But what I'm then going to do is actually clean up the transcript to so that I can actually, if with your permission, publish it on Substack. Um, and what I've found again and again with the conversations from last year is that by doing that, I have very much deepened my learning around the topic because I'm again reading every sentence and, you know, taking out as whatever out of the transcript. And by doing that, I really work with the language. And I can already tell that in our conversation, even though right now after over 2.5 hours, I would be hard pressed to point at exactly the things where I felt like here's the light bulb went off. But it happened to me on a number of occasions. And so I will really enjoy going through this transcript again and like, ooh, that's such a gem of like describing the skill necessary to follow aliveness in a wholesome direction.
mm, yeah, I say I really love your project and admire it. It's like I mean, in the first place of like kind of encouraging people to have conversations that they might not have had with anyone, not even with themselves otherwise. Like I mean, like if it weren't for you like saying, "Hey, I'm doing these recordings," I wouldn't have thought to sit down with myself and spend 2.5 hours thinking about what aliveness means to me. So it's been yeah, it's been very valuable for me already to have had this space to sound out my ideas and to like well to kind of reshape my ideas like in conversation with you. And so like even I think like it feels to me that even just between us, it's already been a really valuable exercise. And if the published material, like, if other people read it and if it kind of lights up anything for them, if it contributes something to yeah, to like a wider society beyond us, if it sparks more conversations, if it encourages other people to do their own Zoom calls and recordings like this, that would be amazing. I mean, this is um yeah, it seems to me that you've done something that brings yourself and others to life with this project.
It does it for me, and I'm trying to talk to people where it works for them too, where they also come more alive. It would be, yeah, it would feel very weird otherwise. I'm very animated, and they're just like, "What is this guy on about?"
Yeah. What on earth are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Then I would feel
Mm.
like, okay, this will be a short one.
Are you asking me what I did last week? Are you asking me what I think about like every world affair right now? Yeah, yeah. There is a trick in choosing the kind of person who wants to have this kind of conversation. Yeah. But yeah, I look forward to it. I mean, like just from memory of this conversation, I don't think there's anything that I would feel uncomfortable about going out on the wide web. Like yeah, so I don't imagine that I would request for anything to be removed. Yeah, so that's just to give you an indication. Like I was pretty comfortable with this. And yeah, I hope it'll benefit other people as well. Yeah.
Thank you so
Oh,
much.
also, Substack, is it under your name? Can I find it under your name?
Yes, I can send you the link.
Awesome. Would love to check it out.
Helen, have a
Yeah.
wonderful Sunday, and then I hope to see you during Intentional Society if you
Yeah.
show up. All the best.
Thank you. All the
Bye
best to
bye.
you too. Have a good evening. Cheers.